Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the runDot podcast. Today we are twinning. I have fresh off his Boston Marathon finish, and he's got his medal right there. Brady Hoover. Brady was on the podcast last week talking all about the different majors and how you qualify for them. And this week, we are talking about your 9th Boston Marathon. You and Marcel Hoog, the men's wheelchair winner, who won his 9th one, and he's like, I don't even know how many I've won. So you and Marcel Hoog, the silver bullet, are, one and the same. But anyway, Brady, just a little background on you. You've coached many athletes to Boston qualifiers. You are an ACSM certified personal trainer. I think I screw it up every single time. ACSM certified personal trainer, and a 2:48 marathon. You've been coaching runners and triathletes for years. And I'm Carrie Tollefson, Olympian, broadcaster, and your guide to the world of runDot. We treat the show like any good workout. We'll start with our warm-up question. We'll settle into our main set conversation, and then we're going to wind things down by having Coach Brady answer an audience question on the cool down. Lots of good stuff today, so let's get after it.
This is the runDot podcast, the running show that brings you world-class coaching with every conversation. Let's get started with today's warm-up.
All right, Brady. Before we get into all things Boston Marathon, on our warm-up question, we have a little bit of Boston Marathon stuff, but let's just get into this. The Boston Marathon is known for unpredictable weather. So are a lot of other races. It can be cold and rainy just as easily as it can be sunny and pleasant. For today's warm-up question, what is the worst weather you've ever had to race in?
Oh, wow. I don't even have to think about this. I ran Boston 2020 and 2018.
Well, wait, 2020?
No, 2018. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
2018. I've raced on many bad days, but nothing is ever going to top that day where it was in the low 40. I think it was in the high 30s at race start. And I mean, it was just dumping buckets. Were you broadcasting at that one too?
I was not out for that one. But I remember watching it on TV wondering, why are the elite athletes basically wearing our jackets? We're twinning today. But the jackets like this, I couldn't understand it. I'm like, it must be freezing. I knew it was raining, but for them to run in these big jackets, usually they want to be aerodynamic. They were not that day. So it had to have been freezing.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was, high 30s, low 40s. I didn't get over like 42. The wind was whipping. The winds were coming out of the east, so it was a headwind the whole way. The winds were kind of swirling. It was just, I still, like when I was looking 10 days out prior to Boston this year and I saw rain in the forecast, I was having nightmares. I'm like, I cannot do this again. I just can't, I wouldn't do it again. Oh my gosh. It was just, I can't even tell you how bad that day was unless you experienced it. I mean, I can describe it. I mean, it was from the moment we got off the buses, it was just downpouring. There was no way to stay dry. You could start with a poncho. Yeah, maybe that would buy you 10 minutes of 10 minutes of comfort, if you will. You could have had an extra pair of socks and shoes, which I did to, at least start with dry feet, but that didn't last long. There was a puddle right there. It's like, okay, I'm already, here we go. And, we knew about the forecast, like a few days in advance too, that it was going to be that bad. And I remember I was running for the Alzheimer's Association then, as a qualifier. But also raising money. And I remember the coach of the team saying, like, you could go out in a poncho, you could wear this, you could wear this, you could go out in, a long sleeve, you could go out in a singlet. And you know what? You're going to be fine and you're going to finish.
Yeah.
Was the mantra there. But there was points of that race where I thought I was going to drop out. I knew my parents were at mile 12. And I said, well, if it's that bad, I'll drop out. I mean, but there was sections of the course where it was always downpouring, but then you got this ice bucket rain, like literally felt like ice was pouring on you, and it just got really cold. And that happened at it was in Framingham, like mile 5, where it just opened up and it was that cold rain. And if it had sustained that like ice bucket cold, I would have dropped out at 12. It was one of those races that you either had a pretty good day or you had a bad day. There was a lot of hypothermia on the course, because what happens with marathoning is, well, your pace starts to slow, and if it slows to a certain point and your heart rate starts to drop, you're not generating as much body heat, and that's where things can go really bad really fast. So you just had to, like, it was one of those days where you just had to, like, literally minute by minute. I was lap resetting my watch constantly. I would, get behind some runners and sit there for a little while, and then I decide to make a surge and get to the next group of runners and sit back there. Um, give a little, okay, there's no wind for this second. I'm going to give a little surge, pull back a little bit, conserve some energy. I ended up
Interesting.
actually running 2 hours, 57 minutes, which I don't know how I did that year. And from the stories I heard that year is either you had people ran really well and beat what they expected to finish. I was just hoping to finish, and I was trying to get there as quick as I could. Or you just had a really bad day. As you can tell, I'm going on and on. It
I
was
love it
that
though.
bad that I'm reliving it, and I'm like, I'm cold thinking about it.
Well, I mean, it's funny because that will go down, I think, is probably the worst. There were other times when there were like monsoon type rain, but it wasn't that cold, cold rain, and it was windy and it was brutal. That was the year that Shalane Flanagan, anyone who knows that name, I mean, she's an Olympic medalist. She's just, she had the American record in almost all of the events for many years. She had to stop and use the restroom. And then Des Linden dropped back to wait for her because Des thought she wasn't going to have a day. And then Des went and won the thing. It was just amazing. So, yeah, I would have to
Like,
say, I
where's
don't,
the other elites?
yeah, the other elites, a lot of them had to drop out because they had hypothermia. I mean, it was just a wild day. But I mean, I think that's kind of how this weekend was too. It was a wild day. It was a really, really perfect temperature type day for most. I was a little concerned about some of the athletes being underdressed, especially up front. Some of the East Africans, especially when they've been training in a little warmer, maybe, or our altitude training camps over here right now are pretty cool and even some are very cold. But when you go over to East Africa, a lot of them had warmer temps or they had their rainy season. And so I was worried that cold would affect them, but they all seemed to be pretty good. A lot of them had gloves or arm sleeves on, which was smart. We don't always see that. But this year you had a pretty good tailwind, Brady. Tell us about your race.
Yeah. Well, I gotta know, what was your worst race that, worst
Oh,
weather that you had in a race. I gotta hear from Carrie on this
I
one.
know, I forgot about mine. I
Well, yeah.
feel the funny part is I always wanted it to be bad. Like, I don't even really think that question even pertains to me. I'm from the Midwest, and anytime there was a weather element, I was like, bring it on. I'm ready for it. But I would say the other way for me, when I ran the Olympic trials, I had run 3 races before the final of the 1500, and they put the 1500 on at primetime NBC. And so we were at 1:30 or 1:15 p.m. in Sacramento. And so that's like 4:15 or something East Coast. I can't remember exact times. But anyway, they put us in the middle of like the big show and it was 118 degrees on the track. That's how hot it was on the track. So the sprinters were like pouring water to put their hands down and their blocks. And, so many of us athletes had run so many races in pretty hot conditions out there that week. So we were all very dehydrated. And so for me, I would have to say that dry heat was one of the worst that I've ever run in. So anyway,
So you had the other extreme.
yeah, kind of another extreme. I've done workouts in 32 inches of snow on a golf course before when I was in high school. Like that comes to mind. Like there's all kinds of different things, but I just loved weather elements. Like I felt like that was my way of saying, bring it on. I'm going to show you, Mother Nature, and my competitors that I can be tough. And it didn't always work in my favor, but I tried to switch it into a positive.
Let's go.
Back to your race, Brady. I want to hear about your race.
Okay, the race, the Boston Marathon. It went as I had planned. I knew going into it that I just didn't have the training miles to race it, but
Yeah.
I had the training miles to run it and complete it. So I said I'm just gonna stay. I was tempted, because this weather that we had, it's 40 degrees at the start, 8 mile an hour tailwind out of the west.
It was only 8 miles per hour.
We had the gusts where
Uh-huh.
we get up to 20, and you could definitely feel that push. I was tempted to go out hot. I was like, should I just run this hard and just see what happens?
Yep.
Like, I know cardiovascularly I'm fine, but with the downhills of Boston, I said, No, my muscular skeletal system is not prepared
Yeah.
for what lays past mile 16 was my longest run going into this,
Yeah.
and when I look back at my training log, I'm like, "Yeah." The last 8 weeks, I had 2 runs over 2 hours, and I said, "That's enough to finish this. I'm gonna play it smart. I'm gonna
Yep.
be" I coach athletes and, if they come into the same situation, it's a long training run day. I'm running zone 2 pace. So I said, "I'm gonna run somewhere between 3:15 and 3:20," is what I was
Mhm.
telling folks, and
Mhm.
I went 3:15 on the button, 0, 0. I said, "No way. I can't believe I did that."
That's wild.
Um, yeah, so just started out, I was in the second wave, so I qualified with 2 hours, 58 minutes, which puts me in the second wave,
Mhm.
but corral won, which was a cool experience because usually when I've qualified with 250, 251, I'd be in like the fourth corral, so there'd be 2,000 runners or so in front of me.
Yep.
No, I had one runner in front of me, and to just see the course, like the other field was 15 minutes down the road,
Oh.
to just be there on the edge of that hill looking down at the course was like, it was surreal. I was like, this is what the pros see, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody in front of them. It's like you almost felt like an elite athlete at that point, or I did. I was like, this is so cool. It's so surreal.
Yeah.
And, of course, the first mile I went out a little fast because, there was, 6,000 other runners behind me. I didn't want to get trampled on. But it was just cool to see nobody down the road and then see some of those like front runners just start moving away
Mm.
and then looking over my shoulder and seeing the sea of people behind me.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, it was a totally different experience
That's
than
really
I've ever
cool.
had.
So you basically were racing for the win of your wave.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Huh. And did you end up getting that guy or how did it work?
Oh, no, because I dropped back after the
You
first
dropped
mile. I
back,
said,
yeah.
"I'm gonna, go to my 7:30
That's
pace
what I
and let's
thought.
let's play."
Because
Yeah,
that second
uh,
wave is pretty quick.
they are pretty quick,
Yeah.
and, there was folks in there that, they had I was talking to one guy and he was gonna do like 2:45,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Why is he in this?" He's like, "I'm coming off of injury," and I said, "Oh, I see. In his qualifying race, he had a bad day, but he still hit the mark."
I see.
He still qualified. Just like when we were talking last week and I had tachycardia and went
Mhm.
3:04
Right.
in New York, but I would have went 2:54, right? It's like, that was my potential. It just didn't happen on that day. I still qualified,
Mhm.
so those are, some of the other runners that you might be in, amongst with
Yeah.
is, yeah, they're there, but they had a bad day and they still qualified, so they're just back further than they otherwise
Sure.
would be because they didn't have a better seating time.
Well, and that was the other
Yeah.
thing I was wondering for you too, because, a lot of the elites said they actually felt like they were being carried at times with the wind because they are, like you said, there's not that many of them in those elite front packs, especially as the race goes on. It gets down to, maybe 8 people at mile 16, 17, and then at 20, it's down to 5 or 6. And then, so they kind of are exposed to all the elements. So I was wondering if maybe you didn't quite feel as much of a push when you had more of those bodies around you.
Yeah, it was only when the winds would, like, pick up at times, I'm like, "Ah, it feels like there's no wind here," or the
Yeah,
course would turn, a slight turn to the right, slight turn to the left, and you'd get a little bit of a crosswind because the winds were coming out of the northwest, so not directly from the west. So that, at
yeah.
points it was like, on your left hip,
Right.
and you would feel that.
Hmm.
And the pack started to thin after about four. Well, I say thin, but you get some separation where
Sure.
you can spread out your arms and twirl around, and you're not going to hit anyone, right? There's
Yeah.
a little bit more space. That's where you can start to feel it.
Yeah.
And I knew my parents were at mile 12, so that helps
Oh,
break down the
cool.
course because I wasn't going for time. Got to chat with them, and then it took me 10 minutes to get up Heartbreak Hill because I stopped and chatted with my family for 4 minutes.
That's as you should. I remember my
That's fine.
husband saying, I'm like, oh, one of my marathons, I said, I walked through the last 6 water stations. He's like, so does everyone else in the marathon.
Yeah.
So, I was like, well, I don't know if people do that. I'm used to racing. And he was like, hey, welcome to the club. We all do that. So it's nice that you took the time to say hi to your family.
It's just all the traditions of Boston just make
Yeah.
it happen. I mean, there's generations of families that,
Oh, yeah.
for it's their grandparents now, but they're still watching at the same spot they did when they were little kids, and they brought their kids, so their kids now have their kids, right? So you got the grandparents of the kids, and those kids are going to grow up and they're going to watch from the exact same spot, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we did growing up. And you just have all these traditions, right? You have, the music at certain miles, and it's not always the same people, but it's this, it's still a DJ at,
Yep.
going into Natick Center. There's just so much history, and this has been going on for generations and years and years and years, and that's what really makes this race special.
So cool. How many athletes did you say you had racing
So
on Monday?
I had 3 athletes that I coached racing. One was a qualifier. So she qualified and got in and got to run Boston for her first time.
How'd it go?
It went really well for her. At first, and then her leg, the downhills got to her
Yep.
legs. We did all the right training. You just never know, like even on the perfect day, like how your body's gonna handle. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember my first Boston. I was trained to smash it, and the course smashed me. Um, but she did fantastic. She still ran a qualifying time this year. Um, so she requalified though. She's right on the cusp
Okay.
of so she's gonna look at another race this fall. I said, don't think about that right now.
Yeah,
Like
enjoy
you
the
got girl.
process that you got there, and
Um,
yeah.
and then 2 of my other runners that I've been coaching for a while are charity runners. They raised a lot of money for causes that are near and dear to
Cool.
their heart. They had great races. One of them, Andrew, he got sick a week before.
Oh,
Um, yeah, his girlfriend had COVID and shared COVID with her, and he was just getting over
oh
it.
shoot.
So I said, okay, the name of the game is pace is out the window. So
Uh-huh.
forget about our pacing plan. Heart rate is your, because coming off of COVID, it affects the heart a little bit. The heart rate's elevated. I said, you don't want to be burning matches and be going out there according to plan. Your heart rate's going to dictate that.
Yep.
Keep it first 10 miles. We keep it around 140. Second, after you go through the half, I'm willing to let it go up, 145.
Mm-hmm.
13. After 13, if it starts to get into the 150s, that's where you're going to cap it. Walk the hills if you have to. We just want to get you to reach that finish line, right? We're
Oh.
all going into this in different places. And then the other athlete, he had, believe it or not, he was playing golf
Oh.
and had done something to his calf muscle.
Ah,
Um,
playing
and it was
golf.
in the clear. Yeah, so that set him back a couple of weeks. We weren't able to do a lot of long runs, but we were able to do some cross training. So, his plan was run for 10 minutes, walk for a minute, run for 10 minutes, walk for a minute, and he executed that. So, all in all, they all did great. And then my father-in-law was out there running. He turned
Oh,
70 this year, so I hope I can be as cool as him one day and
that
still
is
be running this
cool.
race. So I was just thinking about him when I was out there on the course, and yeah, he wanted to go 5 hours, and he went 5 hours and 1 minute. So the final miles got to him, but he
Yeah.
held pace. Yeah, he's so good. It was a great day all around. And I couldn't help, like, while I was running, I was like, Carrie is doing the broadcast on
Ah,
these elite athletes. Like, how was your day?
I was wondering if you had maybe thought about putting us in your ears.
Yeah, I should have. I
Some
should have.
people do.
I'm
Some
just
people
like,
listen to us.
like,
I actually think we
yeah,
should kind of promote that to the runners a little bit more, because there are so many athletes that are like, I really want to race, but I want to see who wins. And, sometimes
yeah.
I'm like, because some people will track runners as they're going as well. So maybe they should just put their earphones in. But no, it was super fun, Brady. We were frozen. I'm just going to be like, we were not so thrilled about the weather, because I know that you guys that we were happy for the runners, and that's really what it's all about that day. But I put on social media that morning, like I put on a layer of like my tights and a tight top that was like a warm running top. And then I put on one of those, the hand warmers that you can crack and put in your gloves. Hannah Storm, who works for ESPN, she brought me this vest that was like just a tight vest that had those warmers like up on my chest, on my stomach, on my back, and up on my shoulders. And that thing saved me. I mean, I had a winter jacket on, I had a turtleneck, but my toes were absolutely frozen. So we made it. We made it just fine, but it was so cool. I mean, the races were amazing. On the wheelchair athletes did so well. Marcel Hoog, as I mentioned at the top of the show, he won his 9th Boston Marathon. He's known as the Silver Bullet. He wears a silver helmet. Just an amazing athlete. And then Eden Rainbow Cooper, I was not surprised to see her. So I was working with John Anderson, who's a longtime sports center anchor at ESPN. He also is one of the main guys from Wipeout. Remember when we used to watch Wipeout from back in the day?
Oh, yes.
That's John Anderson.
Yes.
So the
No
two
way.
Johns that were the original hosts for like 16 years or something like that, that's John Anderson. So he is the main host of the show that I work on for ESPN and the WCVB, which is the local ABC affiliate. And then I am one of the lead analysts, Meb Keflezighi, who's the 2014 champion and Olympic silver medalist. He was also on the show. And then Amanda McGrory, who is one of the best wheelchair athletes we've ever seen in the U.S. She's retired now. So Amanda was doing the broadcast and analyzing the wheelchair. So we saw Marcel Hugh win his 9th, and then we saw Eden Rainbow Cooper, who, as I was saying, I thought she was the one to beat. And there were a couple other ones in there, Manuela Schar and Catherine DeBrunner. Those two have won big races as well. They've all won majors. And Amanda kind of was leaning towards those two. So I was like, yay, Eden Rainbow Cooper. I saw her run in New York a couple weeks ago. She did great. And then on the professional side, we saw Sharon Lokedi repeat. She won last year in a course record. She ran 2:17.22 last year. This year, I did not think she was going to break 2:20. They were out at like 2:22 pace through, I think, like 16 or 18 miles. And then her
And the U.S.
last,
women were leading, right, for a little while?
yes, for most of the race. I'm trying to think of when Sharon took off. I think it was at like mile 18 or 19. She started to move into the lead. But her last 5K, Brady, was 14:48. She ran a
Insane.
4:35 mile.
Yeah, didn't she run like a 4:25 coming off of Heartbreak, like
Yeah,
on that down? I
4:35.
know it's
Yep.
a downhill, but I know she I
Yes.
threw down the hammer.
Last year she threw down a 5:04, but they were much more consistent at being on that course record pace last year. This year it was a windup, and it was amazing. And then this new lady on the scene, her name's Laus Chemnung. She ran Chicago for her first time this past October, and this is her second race, and she finishes second to Sharon Lokedi, who is 4th at the Olympic Games. She's won New York, won Boston. I mean, she's just a star, Sharon Lokedi is. And then just real quick, I know I'm getting kind of into the weeds, but just a big shout out to Jess McLean. Jess was the top American last year, this year again, and she set, it's not the American record. Emily Sisson is the American record holder for the U.S. Marathon, but Jess McLean set the American record Boston Marathon course record. So when she's the fastest American to ever run on Boston, and she ran 2:20. So just a wild day on the women's side. And then real quick on the men, another repeat champion, John Career. He set the course record. A long-standing course record of 2:03.02 was set in 2011 by Jeffrey Mutai.
15 years.
Yes, that is really long, especially with the new technology that's out there right now. And that 2011 year was a real big tailwind as well. That was the last time that we saw everyone across the board run PRs. And so for John Career to run as fast as he did, 2:01 something. I'm just under 2:02.
2:01.52.
Yeah.
And he did a negative split as
He
well
sure
to
did.
win.
He sure did. And his brother Wesley won back in the day as well. So just, I mean, I say it on the broadcast all the time. Like every single one of you that runs a Boston Marathon has a story. And it is just so much fun to be able to tell some of that and some of those stories. So I actually claimed it was the year of the woman. Some things just come out of my mouth, Brady, when I'm on air that long. And I was so fired up to see the women. We saw Dakota Popane, who is one of my dear friends. She and I have the same Olympic tattoo. She's from Minnesota.
Okay.
She and Annie Frisbee train here, and they're like my little sisters, I say. But to see them smiling through Wellesley and the whole entire lead pack, Brady, they were having such a blast in your hometown. It's just really cool to see what Boston Marathon does for everybody. And even the women up front who are chasing after, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to be honest. If you win the Boston Marathon, you win over 100K, plus you get huge prize or appearance fees to come back. So they were having a blast.
If you set the course record, you get a bonus there too.
$50,000. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money on the line, but it was really cool to see how they were all coming together and having a blast during it. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was fun. It
The
was really
pro
fun.
fields is it's always you always wonder how it's gonna shake out. You know it's a perfect weather day. I mean, you don't get the we don't I mean, I like to say, like, you get this weather once in a decade. In Boston, it's like it's longer than a decade. It was 15 years
Yeah,
since we saw a day like today
right.
or a day like Monday. But the elite field, they kind of run as hard they base their effort on, like, what the field's gonna do or somebody just goes out early like
Mm-hmm.
Mep did,
Yep.
like Yuki did in 2018,
Yep.
and hope that they can put on a gap and they're not gonna chase them, though they'll try.
Mm,
But a lot of the time they really stick together and they're conserving energy, and then somebody, late in the race just drops the hammer like John did and just,
yeah.
puts in what did he do? Coming up a heartbreak, I think it was I was reading the stats, like 4:15
Yeah.
on that downhill,
He
just
really
like
cranked it
just
out too. That's kind of his
at what
MO.
point
He loves to do that. He loves to
ah,
just kind of feel the race out. I mean, we saw in Chicago, he went for the course record, which would have been the world record. And he
wow.
ended up having some stomach issues and had to drop out of that one. He thinks, and obviously, if you can run 201 on Boston, it's a very hard course, as we've talked about.
Yeah,
If he can run 201 on a flat, fast course like Chicago, he probably can be close to Kelvin Kiptum's 2 hour.
on the right.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Like, it's what's so fascinating for me to watch when I'm calling races, especially up front, is there's so many different strategies. And on the men's side, we saw a number of athletes that were maybe more like 205, 206, 207 guys, and they were the ones that really made the race. It was Rory Linkletter from Canada and Stephen Pfeffer, and I think Alex Meyer actually was up there from the States, and they kept the pace honest. So John Career really didn't have to touch the lead for a long time. Benson Capruto, who has won the race in 2020. See, this is where my brain now was it 2022? I think he won the race. No, 2021. Anyway, like they weren't even up there. These guys have won the race and they're not even leading it, right? And either did Sharon Lokedi. She didn't have to lead the race until
Yeah,
a little further in. However, the women were out at a much slower pace than most of the top women will run. So it was interesting that every time I call a race, I get like more excited about the future of running because it's just so fun.
yeah, there's different tactics. There's like, okay, I'm just gonna run point A to point B as fast as I can,
Yeah.
and then there's like, oh, I'm just gonna work with the pack and whatever they're doing. If they're holding back, that's more energy. I know I can throw down a fast 10K. At what point did you know that the course record was gonna be broken? Was it before heartbreak? Was it at heartbreak?
Oh, I think it was after. I mean, that's really where we started to focus on that because I think for a long time we weren't really even paying attention to the time because it just felt like they were running
They
more
weren't
like
on
a sit
pace.
and kick type race. But then they started to really squeeze it down. As you said, they negative split. So that means they get faster as they go. And that's where I think we really started to see that the
And
course record was in
yes,
jeopardy.
for those that don't know the Boston course, all the hills come. The first uphill is mile 16.
Mm.
So to negative split, you're getting
Yeah.
gosh, about 500 feet of elevation gain in the second half of the race, and that's a negative split for
I
these
know.
guys. Like, I think John did 1 hour and something second.
101.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just blows my mind.
Was it 101? I have to go back and look at that, folks, because I am all full of stats. So it was just a wonderful weekend. And, I think everyone from first to what was it? How many people ran it?
There was 30,000
30,000.
runners,
Yeah.
and close to that for finish,
Right.
29,000 something finishers. So very close to those that started finish.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
So
look
there was
pretty good coming through. They always show those videos of, people having some trouble in the last little bit and everyone helping them across, and they're so inspiring. But we didn't see a lot. At least I didn't see a lot of it. As I said, I zipped off to the airport right after my last hit of the day, and people were still finishing. Actually, I got to the airport so early that I didn't get to see anyone coming in their foil blankets. Normally, I see people getting on my flight with their sweat on their face still and foil blankets. So, really special day. How did you celebrate?
Well, I was waiting for my athlete. She was two ways behind me, Bonnie, to finish. because I wanted to meet her on, it was
Yeah.
her first Boston, where my other athletes have, this was their third and fourth Boston. So I was like, I wanted to be there on that finish line for Bonnie. Luckily enough, I run with the BAA run club there, so we have VIP. So I was able to come out
Oh,
and
nice.
just after the finish line, like be there and grab her, hug her. She had this
Oh,
big old smile on her face, even though she didn't hit the time that she wanted.
yeah.
She was still just like glowing from ear to ear.
Oh,
So walked with her because I had already had a chance to eat and all that. So just like walked with her, grabbed all the things. Like, I'm like, you just keep pushing forward. Let me get you food. Let me get
yep.
the foil. Let me get, let's get you, let's get your bag. Let's get, some comfy shoes on, some pants on, throw your jacket on there, the celebration jacket, and then meet her husband and her family. Yeah. So that's what
That
we
is
did. And
so
then I came
nice.
home and made pizza with the kids.
Oh, were you just trash though, or did you not feel like you had, just run a marathon because you did
It
reserve some,
wasn't I was
conserve some
walking pretty
energy?
good. Yeah, I didn't hurt as much as I normally do after Boston. One, the weather, and two,
Mm-hmm.
the pace,
Yeah,
right? There wasn't as much pounding on my quads, though. At mile 18, I was starting to feel the miles. It's a marathon.
sure.
No matter how you go, what pace you're running, it's gonna get you eventually.
Yeah,
But yeah, the last 3 miles were a real struggle. It was hard to hold. It was hard to hold training pace at that point. One, limited miles, and two, it's a marathon,
yeah.
right? It's miles on the legs, especially those downhills, a lot of
Mm.
pounding.
Well, it was a fun weekend. We got to meet for the first time in person.
Yes.
We've been on the runDot podcast a lot, which I always appreciate when you come on because I think everyone likes to hear from you and whatever. But yeah, it was really fun. I got to do the press conference on Friday, so I was the host of the press conference of the elite athletes, and then on Saturday, you heard me on the 5K. I was doing the
Yeah.
announcing with Laura
And
Green.
Lauren was on her way in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. So ran the 5K or announced the 5K, then announced the elite miles, and the youth miles and 1K is super fun. And then I went to Meb Keflezighi's brother, Howie, is Meb's agent. And so we went, and a lot of you know Meb. Some of you are coached by him. I emceed that event that Howie hosted. It was called the Howie and Hope Awards that he presented there. And then from there, I went to the expo where I got to meet you. Did you have fun?
Yes. Yeah, it was a blast. Seeing Ashley, that was like history in the making, running 100. I don't even know. And she's
Ashley
running like 7.
Paulson.
Yeah, she's running 7:30s. That's what I ran for the marathon. And I said to you when I saw her, I said, Ashley's still going over there.
I know.
And
So
she
for
was
those
like,
of
when
you who
you,
don't know who Ashley is, Ashley was on my podcast, See Tally Run, last week. And she is an iFit trainer for Nordic Track, right? That's on Nordic Track, I
yeah,
believe.
motor track.
Yeah.
Yep, motor
And
track.
she ran 100 miles on the treadmill at the expo. And what was her time again? 12 hours, 47 minutes or something?
40s. Yes. Yep, world record.
7:30 pace.
Yeah.
And
Like,
she tells all about the whole process of, she hadn't done it when she was on the pod, but she said she has to let the treadmill come to a complete stop when she had to use the restroom. There were all kinds of rules that she could not do while she was on there. Otherwise, it would just negate it. She made it. Guinness World Record. That's pretty
I
awesome.
know,
So you went
just
to that, you saw
absolutely
her there,
incredible.
and then you came to the expo or to the panel.
Years, and then yeah, came back to the panel because I knew I wanted to see the international athletes, and you were there, and I had a chance to meet too. And it was nice just getting to know the runner. Because we think of these like they're like running gods, but they're everyday people. I love the questions you were asking them, like what's your favorite ice cream? Well, I guess that's more an American question
totally
than it is an
is.
international. Because they were like ice cream, like
Yeah. But
no,
most of them like cookies.
chocolate.
They like cookies with.
Yes,
So we had
cookies.
John Career, who ended up winning, Benson Compruto, who he's won the race before, and he was, I think, 3rd or 4th. I can look it up, but he
Yeah,
was
they don't have it
right up there. And then we had Sharon Lokedi, Irene Cheptai, who was 4th last year. I think she finished up maybe 5th. Oh my gosh, I should look this up for you guys. And then we had Marcel Hoog and Catherine DeBrunner. That was the 6, right?
Yeah, that was a 6.
Yeah. And yeah, we asked all kinds of questions about Boston, but then you all know, if you've listened to my See Tally Run, that I like rapid fire questions. So I kind of took them through those, and they said cookies rather than ice cream toppings.
Yep, yep. I was like, I would have been all about the ice cream, but I was like, that surprised me, and just getting to know them. And then I got a chance, like, it was time to come to the question and answer, and nobody's raising their hand. I'm like, okay, well, I got to ask them, like, they've all run this course before. Like, what's your favorite part? Like, I
Yeah.
have my favorite part, but what's your favorite part? I mean, I have multiple favorite parts, but,
Yeah.
my favorite, other than seeing my family, um, but it was just funny to hear their answers. I said, but again, I said, besides the finish line, right? Because we
Right.
all love the finish, but
Yes.
where else on the course do you look forward to? And one of the gentlemen said, and right before that, someone said, how do you say slow down in your language?
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying it. And then the next question was my question about your favorite part of the course. And one of the gentlemen, not John, the other gentleman that won in
Benson.
2000,
Benson
Benson,
Caputo.
he
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, Wellesley College," and you just you just had to jump in there. It's like, "Oh, because you want your other runners to slow down so you can kiss the
Yeah.
girls."
And he
And he's like
totally was like, yes.
blushing, smiling ear to
But
ear.
I was watching Benson. He didn't go over there and give any kisses, but he did smile and he did enjoy it. Clayton Young was over there high-fiving everybody. And yeah, do
Yeah.
you stop and say hi to any of the ladies? Do you dare admit it?
I high-fived the whole
You
way, and
high-five.
even there was a part where, like, the barricades were further back, and I'm like, "These girls are giving it. I gotta get up on the
Oh,
grass here
cool.
and just keep the high fives going for that half-mile stretch."
How fun is
It
that?
is one of my more enjoyable stretches. My favorite is, I like going into, it's, Cleveland Circle,
Mm,
mile 22 or so,
okay.
crossing the train tracks and looking down that hill and just seeing the wall of people, right, on both sides of the street, the whole square's lit up.
Oh, so
And then I know
fun.
it's a straight shot home other than the right on Hereford and left on, it's just straight to Boston. So it's like, okay, I know the crowds are going to carry me from here on out, but just being like up high, coming down the hill and just seeing, literally thousands of people,
That's so fun.
knowing that you're almost home. That is my
Yeah.
favorite part.
Yeah, I think I mean, I have not run the Boston Marathon. I just run my mouth throughout the entire time.
Well,
So,
one of these,
one of these years, yes, but it was a blast. I loved every minute of it. It was an honor to get to meet you finally and to have you in the crowd, and so thankful that you did ask a question with everyone. I think they liked that question, and yeah, I
yeah,
can't
it
wait
was
to
nice to
come
hear
back.
everyone's perspectives, right? John, he said he liked the start because he likes to run
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
And he showed us that. He showed us
But
that coming
remember,
off of
John
Harper.
Career fell last year in the first like 20 meters of the
Yeah,
race. The man who
yeah,
won the race last year, everybody, fell. And then do you remember how he showed you? Like, I didn't ask if they like one
the
of I
scar.
a lot of times I like to ask if they have a tattoo, would they ever get one? But he showed us he kind of has a tattoo because he has this real big circle on his hand from how deep of a cut he had last year. It's a scar. And so he has a reminder all the time of the Boston Marathon. So it's just interesting. He ran
Yeah,
with his number in his hand the entire way. And that's something like if we were to grab a little rock or if we were to, use our phone in our hand, like it sort of is different. And it is also like it kind of changes your mentality of like having to hold something throughout a race or 26.2 miles. I mean, I forgot that he held that, but which he should. He had to go through all the timing mats and things, but I guess I would have probably
yeah,
tucked it in or something like that, but he held that number the entire way last year.
yeah. It's good. It's distracting,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. It's a race bib, so it's not too much energy. But
Yeah.
like these guys, sometimes they're fighting for hundredths of a second, and holding something in your hand can be that hundredth of a second that costs you
Yeah.
a win.
That was really,
Um,
really cool though. What a story. He's a great guy. John Creer and
yeah,
Sharon
yeah.
Lochetti, Eden Rainbow Cooper, Marcel Hoog, all of them are just delightful people. So made it easy for me. I was crying on the broadcast again, Brady. I can't help myself every single time. And John Anderson, as the jokester, he makes fun of me every time too. So anyway, hey, thanks for coming on the show and doing a recap of
Yeah,
your race and letting us hear about your awesome athletes and just the fun that you have running. I think
yeah.
that's the big thing at runDot. We just want people to enjoy themselves, get the most out of their efforts, and you clearly do that. You practice what you preach, dude.
Yeah, I try to. I was like, we can't leave these our audience like hanging like, okay, we just got excited about the Boston Marathon like last Tuesday.
Yeah,
And then we were talking about the other world majors. I'm like, we have to do some sort of recap
I
to just
believe
kind
that
of
too.
hear and chit chat, like unscripted. Like
Yeah.
let's just talk about our days.
I know. Well, and if you didn't run the Boston Marathon and ever want to, go back and listen to last week because Brady gives a breakdown of how you can qualify for any of the majors. But also, I think there's
Yeah.
just more to it. As I
Mhm.
said, announcing the 5Ks and the miles. Like, not everyone can run the mile, but you can run the 5K and then stick around and watch some of the world's best or the up and comers running. It's a fun weekend. And then being able to witness the Boston Marathon. I mean, the crowds were, I don't know, 10 deep a lot of times. It was so loud and it's
Yeah,
just a
there
big
was no
party.
quiet.
Yeah. There's so
Yeah,
many
there's no quiet.
shakeout runs, you coming to the expo and
Mhm.
just being able to listen to some of the world's best. Or like the next day I had Catherine Switzer on a panel, the first woman well, she wasn't the first woman to run the Boston Marathon, um,
But she,
but
yeah.
she was the first woman to register and run. And she was tackled by the race director because he didn't know that she was a woman when she registered. So it's just a great story.
Yeah, and
Check that
I
out.
even heard, I don't know if you heard this, I didn't see her, but Emma Bates was there in the Newton Hills, and
Yes,
two girls were talking about that. I'm like, how did I miss her?
I know there's so
Like,
many.
people just come out, even if they're not
Yep,
running, they just come out to watch, right?
they
From
really
all, some
do.
people just fly in to watch. Like Bonnie's friends flew up from Florida just to watch her run. I'm
So
like,
cool.
oh, that breaks my, but warms my heart, I
Warms your
should
heart.
say.
Yeah.
That no, here they are. They were, college roommates and stuff, and they
Mm.
flew up just to watch her run the Boston Marathon. Then when they were leaving Tuesday, I'm like, those friends are keepers.
And it is hard to pick your person out sometimes. Like you're just like this all day. Like, are they there? Are they?
Yeah,
I mean, now you
that's why
can
I always
now
wear
you
the
can
pink
track.
pink Adidas hat
Oh,
and
good
red
idea.
shoes. And I just bought a new pair of shoes because they were losing their pop. So I just got pink shoes to match the pink hat. So
I love it.
that in future races, I stick out like a sore thumb, I hope.
That's great. We know that you like to wear crazy hats. We've seen them on the show. All right, we're going to
Yes.
head into the cool down, Brady. We got a question from the audience. This is from Andrew. I wonder what Andrew that is. Everyone in the world knows Boston is a must-see TV every year. What is the short course equivalent? Aside from the Olympics, of course, what short course events should we try to catch the broadcast for? Ooh, that is a hard question. Well, I flew home from
Mhm.
Boston last night or on Monday night. And on Tuesday night, I was already broadcasting the USATF Road Mile Championships in Des Moines, which is part of the Drake Relays Week. That was an exciting race. But let me just ponder on this for a little bit. Do you have one, Brady?
I've gotta say, I was gonna say it's gotta be like a 1 mile, one of the 1 mile races where you get the top athletes
Yeah.
out because you just don't know. There's so much strategy to a 1 mile race.
Mm,
Like just watching the invitational mile that happened over the weekend, that was so much fun because
yeah.
they're running so fast.
Mm,
Um, I like the indoor mile as well that they do at New Balance. I like tuning into
yep.
some of those,
Like
whether
Milrose
it's youth
games,
or
New Balance games, any of those.
yep.
I'd have to say a big one coming up now in a couple months here is the Prefontaine Classic. That'll be on NBC, and that is pretty much the who's who of the world of track and field. So you'll get to see field events, you'll get to see sprints, you'll get to see distances, and they also air a distance carnival sort of thing the night before. But actually coming up this weekend is also uh Penn Relays weekend. So you get to see all kinds of great. I think CBS has Drake Relays. Penn Relays will be on NBC. Lots of running will be on TV. So you guys, there's just so much. And if you're not a fan of the pro side of things, sorry, get with the times. Let's go. We got some interesting stories. And this is a perfect time to become a fan because 2028 is right around the corner and it's right here in the States. And so the American runners are doing really well. And obviously, we love athletes from all over the world. But if you are from here in the States, we're going to have an Olympics here. We need to get behind our American athletes and
And
show them the support.
I would say a lot of our Olympic trial field, the men and women's were there at the race,
Exactly.
and a lot of them been in your pod.
I know.
Since-
Yep.
yeah.
We will get them on See Tally Ron. Maybe we'll get them over here on runDot if people want to hear from them. But hey, thanks for
Should.
joining us, everybody. Brady, congratulations. And we'll
Thanks.
have you back on the pod real soon.
All right.
Keep getting after it, everyone. Oh, I got a new bracelet. Check it out.
Woo!
Yeah. Running with Grace.
Love it.
That's who made that. All right, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the runDot podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on your listening platform of choice. For more opportunities to learn from our coaches, check out our YouTube channel and follow runDot Training on social. Ready to train with us? Head to runDot.com and get started for free. Until next time, happy training.